that tends to hold down our growth prospects there. But we really think what we're finding out is already happening is by having Merriam-Webster online, available as a free website around the world.
Thank you.
Possible approaches to the problems and disturbances presented by life. We can see them as symptomatic or symbolic. We can think of not merely symptomatically, but also symbolically. Whitman was expressing that life is driven by the neurological aspects of living our lives out symptomatically or symbolically. Unfortunately, like the overwhelming majority of scholars today, Whitman advocated living our lives out both symptomatically and symbolically simultaneously. That is a core of the problems that we experience today. This indeed must be addressed. The core of my book, The Golden Apple, describes how early man underwent a neurological misadventure when he resorted to symbols and mythology to describe events that occurred all around him. Symbolic thought occurred out of a symptomatic existence. It has been traditionally held by practically every major discipline that symbolic thought is a natural process of the human mind. The neurological processes that produce symbolic thought laid the groundwork for the emergence of myth, mythology, superstition, and applied mythology, also known as rituals. We have discovered that there has been a misunderstanding of the role symbols and symptoms have played in the behavior of man as he migrated out of Africa throughout the rest of the world. Scholars have held that the thinking process and communications through symbols is a foundation of all creativity, art, reason, and language, and more recently, mathematics, science, and the written word. Indeed, symbols are the foundation and the origins of all religious thought. Symbols and mythology are synonymous and the foundation of the majority of behavior patterns and decisions making that we see globally. Symbols are seen as a necessary and general positive ingredient in human life throughout the world. We maintain that symbolic thought is not a natural neurological process, but a mental aberration that has caused behavior patterns that are the foundation of today's global conflicts that we see in the world today. What has not been given enough attention is the fact that symbolism has created two of the most destructive entities that has caused death, war, and conflicts throughout civilization. These two entities are racism and religion. Indeed, race and religion are so sensitive that discussion is feared and almost banned. It must be understood, symbolism has its origin in Africa and migrated with Homo sapiens in every corner of the universe. With that migration came all the myths and superstitions that symbolism produced. The following slides will show the dynamics and damage of symbolic thinking. This slide depicts how the human brain receives the stimuli produced by symbols. Remember, symbolism has been thought of as a natural neurological process of the human mind. It has to be understood that nothing becomes symbolic until the human brain makes it symbolic. And this is what we call a neurological misadventure. That is the reason why Jelena Jacobi states in her book, Complex Archetypes, Symbols in the Psychology of C.G. Jung, Whether a thing is a symbol or not depends chiefly upon the attitude of the observing consciousness. Hence, it is perfectly possible that for one man, the same fact or object represents a symbol, and for the other, only a sign. In a Washington Post essay discussing the Iran-Contra scandal, anthropologist Clifford Cortez described former President Ronald Reagan's view of history as mythological from day one. The Iran-Contra affair was described as a crisis of sympathetic magic, a phrase used by anthropologist James Fraser in his classic work, The Golden Bough. Reports of Ronald Reagan's reliance on astrology only reinforce his reputation for basic decisions or myth. As President Ronald Reagan was America's chief myth maker, the fact that he was elected at all shows the extent to which mythology exists in the American psyche. Apparently not everyone was fooled. A nationally syndicated cartoon portrayed Reagan criticizing the so-called voodoo practices of his nemesis, Manuel Noriega, while Reagan himself set U.S. policy with the advice of his astrologer. Reagan was a victim of the same neurological processes which he accused Noriega. Reagan was not alone on the world stage, however. Another world leader with similar behavior was Mikhail Gorbachev. A Philadelphia Inquirer article brilliantly describes the initial Reagan-Gorbachev summit as their first meeting amid the grandeur of the Kremlin Palace, 18th century St. Catherine's Hall. Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev got right to the point. Each had a major objective in mind for a Moscow summit that will produce little but symbols. This slide shows how the Western world sees Africans as a very superstitious people. The cartoon depicts the white hunters hiding in the grass. The cartoon says, with a little luck, they may reveal us as gods. This reminds me of the statement of Herodotus, who, as we all know, is considered the father of history, when he states in Herodotus' book 2, the Egyptians are religious to excess, far beyond any race of man. That statement was commented upon the translator, who states the extreme religious views of the Egyptians became at length a gross superstition. Indeed, it is understood by almost all scholars that Africans are indeed among the most superstitious people in the universe. The great Egyptologist Cheikh Ahmed Diop described in his book, Civilizational Barbarism, how superstition caused tribal wars. He also states the idea of God on his throne is a symbol. Osiris was the first god in the history of religion to sit on a throne on Judgment Day to judge the soul of men. Slide number 5 shows how symbol systems produce behavior that brings down corporations. The U.S. energy firm Enron Corporation used corrupt accounting practices to formally state their profits and losses. This cartoon mocks Iran's accounting firm Arthur Andersen by showing 2 children doing arithmetic at the blackboard. The child on the left mythologizes his results with the hopes that his skills will qualify him for a job with the accounting firm Arthur Andersen. The next slide shows the tragic results of mythological symbolism and the havoc it causes with one's identity. Here is an African-American youngster expressing confusion to his parents on his identity. The caption reads, "When I grow up to do something really great, will I get to stop being a black person too?" Symbolism produces racism, and that racism affects everyone from birth to death. The tragedy of the negative connotations of being black results in a desire to be other than black. This is indeed a tragedy which is evident in this cartoon. This incense burner, discovered in Nubia, engravings on that are symbolic signs indicating the origin of Egyptian civilization, which of course was Nubia. The Yap stated the Nile Valley was peopled by a progressive descent of black peoples from the region of the Great Lakes, the creator of Homo sapiens sapiens. True history can only be discovered through symptomatic results. The reason I identify the symptomatic thought process as a core alternative to the destructive hold of symbolism and mythology is because our research and the study of the global crisis today shows a need for an urgent way out that is built on reality instead of myth. I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you stop by our publisher's booth, Africa World Press, at hall number 8. Thank you.